I used to think entitlement announced itself loudly, through yelling, through threats, through obvious red flags you could spot from across the room. I was wrong. Sometimes it sounds like a soft smile across a kitchen counter. Sometimes it shows up halfway through a plate of pasta. Sometimes it looks at you and says, "We're basically married." Like that sentence alone should unlock your bank account. I was 32 years old when I learned that 4 months of dating can feel dangerously close to a lifetime, if you let someone rush you into believing it is. This was a few years earlier, before I turned 32, but the lesson didn't soften with time. We'd been together 16 weeks. Not 16 years. Not even long enough to fight about whose furniture stays. 16 weeks of sleepovers, shared takeout orders, lazy Sundays, inside jokes that hadn't yet calcified into habits. The kind of relationship that still feels light, still optional, still voluntary. And then, on a random Tuesday night, my boyfriend sat at my kitchen counter scrolling his phone while I cooked dinner and calmly told me he'd quit his job. No warning, no backup plan, no conversation. Just done. At first I thought he was joking or exaggerating, or that something serious had happened. Harassment, layoffs, a mental health emergency. Something that would make the next sentence make sense. Instead, he smiled and told me he was going to take time to find his passion. And then, like it was the most logical conclusion in the world, he explained that I would cover his rent, his car payment, his insurance, his groceries, roughly $2,800 a month, until he figured things out. When I laughed, he looked offended. When I said no, his face hardened. When I reminded him we'd only been dating 4 months, he accused me of reducing our relationship to a number. "We're basically married," he said. That was the moment my stomach dropped, not because I loved him, but because I realized how differently we understood reality. To him, emotional proximity meant financial obligation. To me, affection did not equal responsibility. I didn't know yet that this sentence would be the start of everything unraveling, that it would lead to Venmo requests, guilt campaigns, strangers texting my phone, police at my door, and a courtroom deciding whether I'd done something wrong by refusing to bankroll someone else's choices. All I knew, standing there with pasta cooling on the stove, was that something had just crossed a line, and once crossed, it would never uncross itself. I met him in January, on Hinge, during that quiet stretch after the holidays, when everyone swears this is the year they'll do dating differently. His profile was normal. No gym mirror selfies, no bitter bio about no drama. Just a decent smile, a software developer job listed, and answers that suggested he knew how to hold a conversation without trying too hard. We matched, we talked, it flowed. Our first date was coffee that turned into dinner without either of us saying it out loud. He was funny in an unpolished way, self-aware, quick with observations, not performative. He asked questions and actually waited for the answers. When he laughed, it wasn't loud, but it was genuine. I remember noticing that. At the time, I was 29, working full-time, stable in that unglamorous but solid way that doesn't make for exciting stories but keeps your life upright. I liked routine. I liked planning. I liked knowing my bills were paid before I spent money on anything fun. He seemed to like that about me. He talked about his job with just enough frustration to feel relatable, not alarming. Normal workplace complaints. Deadlines. Management. Nothing that hinted at what was coming. The first month felt easy. We saw each other once or twice a week, texted daily, but not obsessively. No pressure to define things too fast. I appreciated that. By the second month, we were staying over at each other's places. He'd bring groceries sometimes. I'd cook. We split things without ever having to discuss it. It felt balanced, adult. I met a few of his friends. Nice enough, casual hangouts. Nothing intense. He met mine. No awkwardness, no warning signs. If anything, I remember thinking, this is refreshingly uncomplicated. 4 months in, I wouldn't have called it serious in a lifelong sense, but it was progressing. The way relationships are supposed to, gradual, earned. That's the thing people don't talk about enough. You can be comfortable with someone without owing them your future. Looking back, there were moments I brushed past too quickly. Small comments that didn't land right, but didn't feel big enough to stop anything. He once joked that he wasn't built for the 9-to-5 grind. Another time, he said he admired how secure I was, financially, emotionally, all of it. The way he said it felt like praise, but there was something else under it. Expectation, maybe. I ignored it, because overall things were good. No jealousy, no drama, No love bombing, no talk of soulmates or forever. Just dinners, shared playlists, lazy nights on the couch. That's why the Tuesday night he came over felt so ordinary at first. I was cooking pasta and chicken, nothing fancy. He sat at my counter scrolling his phone, unusually quiet. Normally, he'd narrate his entire day before his jacket was off. When I asked if he was okay, he smiled and said, "Yeah, just had an interesting day." I didn't know yet that this was the day everything shifted, that the relationship I thought was balanced was about to be reframed, by him, as a contract I'd never agreed to. I thought we were dating. He thought he'd found a safety net. And I was about to find out just how different those two things are. I remember the exact moment my body reacted before my brain caught up. He set his phone down on my kitchen counter, face down, like he was bracing himself, and said almost casually, "I quit my job today." I stopped stirring the pasta. Not slowly, not dramatically. My hand just froze. I turned to look at him, searching his face for the punchline. There wasn't one. He looked calm, relieved even, like someone who'd just finished an exhausting chore. "Wait," I said, "you quit? Like, put in your notice?" He shook his head. "No, I walked out at lunch, told them I was done." The word "walked out" echoed louder than it should have. My mind jumped immediately to worst-case scenarios. Harassment, a blow-up with management, something serious enough to justify that level of finality. "Did something happen?" I asked. "Like, was there an issue? HR? Anything like that?" "No," he said easily. "Nothing like that. I just wasn't happy." He leaned back on this stool, folding his arms, as if he were settling into a long-planned confession. "It wasn't fulfilling me. I was miserable going in every day. Life's too short to waste it doing something that drains you." I nodded, slowly, because on the surface, that part made sense. I understood burnout. I understood dissatisfaction. Everyone does, eventually. "Okay," I said carefully. "So, what's your plan?" That's when he smiled. Not nervous, not uncertain. Confident. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about." Something in my chest tightened. He started explaining how he wanted to take time to figure out what he really wanted to do. Explore different paths. Maybe take some online courses. Really find his passion. I listened, nodding, serving the pasta, trying to keep my tone neutral while my brain raced ahead. "How long are you thinking?" I asked. He shrugged. "A month, maybe 6, however long it takes. I don't want to rush it." I set his plate down and finally asked the question that felt obvious to me. "You've got savings, though, right? To cover your expenses while you're figuring it out?" He took a bite of pasta, chewed, swallowed. "So, about that." My stomach dropped an inch. He started listing numbers. His rent, his car payment, insurance, phone bill, groceries. Altogether, I'm at about $2,800 a month. Maybe closer to $3,000 if I'm being honest. I blinked. "Okay," I said slowly. "So you'll need to find something pretty quickly then. Even part-time could help bridge the gap." He shook his head. "Actually, I was thinking you could help me out." The words landed heavier than they should have, like they carried more expectation than he was willing to say outright. "Help you out? How?" I asked. He met my eyes, completely serious. "Cover my expenses for a bit, until I figure things out." The room went quiet except for the faint bubbling of water on the stove. I laughed once, short, reflexive, not unkind. "We've been dating 4 months," I said. "I'm not paying your bills." His expression changed instantly. The softness disappeared. "Are you serious right now?" "Yes," I said. "You quit your job without another one lined up. That was your choice. I'm not funding it." He pushed his chair back slightly. "I thought we were building something," he said. "I thought you cared about me." "I do care about you," I replied, my voice steady. "But caring about someone doesn't make me financially responsible for them." "It's temporary," he insisted. "I'm not asking you to support me forever." "How temporary?" I asked. "You just said you don't know how long." He stood up. "This isn't about the timeline. This is about you not supporting me when I need it." I crossed my arms, my heart starting to pound, not fast, but heavy. "Supporting you doesn't mean paying your rent," I said, especially after 16 weeks of dating. "Stop saying that," he snapped. "Stop reducing what we have to a number." "Then what would you call it?" I asked. He crossed his arms. "We're basically married." For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. "We're what?" "We're basically married," he repeated. "We stay at each other's places. We've met each other's friends. You're supposed to support your partner." I stared at him, my pulse loud in my ears. "We're not married," I said. "We're not engaged. We haven't even talked about exclusivity in those terms." His voice shot up. "Oh, so you're seeing other people then?" "That's not what I'm saying," I replied. What I'm saying is you don't get to quit your job and expect me to bankroll your life after 4 months. He grabbed his bag from the counter. I can't believe how selfish you're being, he said. I thought you were different. I thought you actually gave a damn about my happiness. Your happiness isn't my financial responsibility, I said. He paused at the door. We'll see about that. Then he left, pasta half-eaten on the counter, my kitchen suddenly too quiet. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, my hands still, my thoughts spinning around one sentence. We're basically married, and realizing this wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I missed him. Not because I was heartbroken. My mind kept replaying the conversation over and over, circling the same question. When did he decide my stability was something he could claim? I searched for the invisible agreement he seemed convinced we'd made, some unspoken contract, where his choices automatically became my responsibility. By morning, one thing felt solid. I hadn't done anything wrong. So when my phone buzzed later that day and his name lit up the screen, I answered. His voice was softer, controlled, careful. I'm sorry I got upset, he said. I know it was sudden. Can we talk? I told myself this was what adults did. They talked. They clarified. They didn't escalate. I understand you hated your job, I said, but quitting without a plan and expecting me to cover your bills isn't realistic. I'm not asking you to support me forever, he said quickly, just until I get back on my feet. How long is that? I asked. A pause. I don't know, he admitted. That's the whole point of taking time to figure it out. Then get any job while you figure it out, I said. Starbucks, Target, a restaurant. Something that pays your expenses. Another pause, longer. Those jobs are beneath me, he said finally. I have a bachelor's degree. There it was. Your degree doesn't pay your rent, I said. A paycheck does. If you really cared about me, he replied, his voice tightening, money wouldn't matter. We've been dating 4 months, I said. I'm not in love with you. The silence on the other end felt dense. Then he hung up. I didn't hear from him for 2 days. Long enough for me to believe, briefly, that he'd accepted reality. Then my phone buzzed while I was at my desk at work. A Venmo notification. I opened it and stared. A request for $2,800. The note read, April expenses. Thanks, babe. My heartbeat thudded once, hard. I declined it. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Why did you decline? Hello? I need this money. My rent is due in 3 days. I replied once. I'm not paying your bills. We already talked about this. I'm going to be homeless, he wrote. My landlord already sent me a notice. Then get a job, I said. Target down the street from you is hiring. You're really going to let me become homeless? Something cold settled in my chest. You're really trying to guilt me into paying for a decision you made without talking to me? He called. I didn't answer. He called again. And again. 17 times in a row. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, but the texts kept coming. You're abandoning me when I need you most. I can't believe I trusted you. You said you cared about me. My mom was right about you. You're just like every other woman. I muted the conversation. Then his best friend texted me. He's really going through it. Can you please just help him out? He's falling apart. He quit his job with no backup plan, I replied. That's not my emergency. He thought you were serious, his friend wrote. He thought you'd be there for him. We never discussed combining finances, I said. Ever. The response came fast. Wow, you're actually heartless. I blocked that number too. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, I got home from work around 6:30 and saw someone sitting on the curb outside my building. A suitcase beside him. My stomach dropped. It was him. What I'd never bothered to think about before was where he actually lived when he wasn't crashing at my place. Some apartment he shared with a roommate he'd had since before we met. What are you doing here? I asked. He looked up. His eyes were red and swollen, his face carefully arranged into devastation. My roommate kicked me out, he said. She told me if I can't pay May rent, I have to leave. He stood, dragging the suitcase toward me. So I'm here. The air felt heavier. You can't stay here, I said. Where else am I supposed to go? He demanded. Your mom's place? A friend's couch? A hostel? I don't know, I replied, but you're not staying with me. You're my girlfriend, he said, incredulous. You're supposed to help me. I'm not your girlfriend anymore, I said. We're done. His jaw dropped. You're breaking up with me because I need help? No, I said. I'm breaking up with me because you quit your job expecting me to bail you out, and now you're showing up at my apartment with a suitcase after 16 weeks of dating. This isn't normal behavior. I have nowhere else to go, he said, and then he started crying. Not quietly, not privately. Loud, shaking, uncontained. An older woman walking her dog gave me a look sharp with judgment. Perfect. You have options, I said. You're just refusing them because you want me to be your solution. Please, he sobbed. Just a few nights until I figure something out. And this was where I hesitated, where I made the mistake of thinking compassion would end the chaos. 3 days, I said. You sleep on the couch. You spend those days applying to every job you can find. The crying stopped almost instantly. Thank you, he said. I knew you still cared. That should have been my warning. Because the moment I let him through my door, the situation stopped being uncomfortable and started becoming something else entirely. The first night he stayed over, I barely slept. Not because he was there, but because my body refused to relax. Every sound felt louder. Every shift of weight on the couch registered like a warning signal. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment I'd said 3 days, and wondering why my chest had tightened the second the words left my mouth. I told myself it was temporary, controlled, contained. 3 days, a clear boundary, a deadline. In the morning, I left early for work. I didn't wake him. I stood in the doorway for a second, watching him asleep on my couch, surrounded by my space, my throw blanket, my coffee table, my quiet, and felt something twist low in my stomach. Before I got in my car, I texted him. Job applications today. Serious ones. The reply came fast. Of course, I'm on it. Work was a blur. I kept checking my phone even though I told myself not to. Every buzz made my pulse jump. Not excitement, anticipation. The kind that comes when you're bracing for impact. When I got home that evening, the apartment smelled like nothing. No cooking, no effort. He was on my couch, wearing my hoodie, legs stretched out, eating my expensive chips straight from the bag. Netflix glowed on the TV, some show I'd never watched. Hey, I said, keeping my voice neutral. How'd the job hunt go? Good, he said easily. I applied to a bunch of places. I set my bag down slowly. Which ones? He shrugged. Marketing coordinator roles, stuff similar to what I was doing. Show me, I said. He frowned. What? Show me your applications. His posture changed, defensive, closed. Why do I have to prove it to you? Because you're staying in my apartment for free, I said. Show me. He hesitated, just long enough to matter, then pulled out his laptop. He opened it slowly, like dragging time might soften the moment. I stood behind him, arms crossed, my heartbeat steady but heavy. No job sites, no applications, just Netflix history, Instagram tabs, nothing else. You didn't apply to anything, I said. I was doing research, he replied quickly. I need to make sure the companies align with my values. Something in me went very still. Pack your stuff, I said. He turned to look at me, eyes wide. What? It's almost 7, he said. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem anymore, I replied. The tears came back instantly, loud, shaky, dramatic. I didn't move. I stood there with my arms crossed, breathing slow, waiting. I'd learned something important in the last few days. His emotions surged when he wanted control and evaporated when they didn't work. When the crying didn't get a reaction, it stopped. He started packing, slowly, deliberately, pausing every few seconds to glance at me like I might change my mind. I didn't. At the door, suitcase zipped, he tried one last time. You're really going to throw me out with nowhere to go. You threw yourself out, I said. Every decision that led you here was yours. I'll never forgive you for this. Okay. He left. I locked the door behind him, leaned my forehead against it for a second, and let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for days. I changed my Netflix password. Checked my apartment to make sure nothing was missing. An hour later, an unknown number lit up my phone. This is his mother, the voice message said. You should be ashamed of yourself, treating my son like garbage after everything he gave you. I blocked the number. Later that night, a friend came over. Sat across from me with a beer in hand, shaking his head. You dodged a tactical nuke, he said. I nodded, but I didn't feel relieved yet. Because deep down, something told me this wasn't over. Not even close. I thought the worst part was over once he walked out with his suitcase. That was my mistake. The first message came the next morning, from a number I didn't recognize. You destroyed my life. I lost everything because of you. I stared at the screen, my coffee going cold in my hand. I didn't reply. I screenshot it and saved it. Something about the tone felt rehearsed, like a script he'd already decided to perform. Then another number, and another. Different area codes, burner apps, all variations of the same theme. You led me on, you abandoned me, you owe me. I didn't engage, I muted, I documented. I told myself silence would starve it. It didn't. 2 days later, I got home from work and found 2 police officers standing in my building's lobby, talking to the doorman. My stomach dropped before they even turned around. Are you my name? One of them asked. Yes, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We need to speak with you about a report filed by your ex-boyfriend. The word report landed hard. They followed me up to my apartment. I kept my hands visible, my breathing slow. Inside, the older officer explained calmly. He's claiming you illegally evicted him and stole personal property worth about $300. I almost laughed, but I didn't. He was never a tenant, I said. He's not on my lease. He never paid rent. He stayed 3 nights as a guest after losing his housing. I asked him to leave. He did. Do you mind if we take a look around? The younger officer asked. Go ahead. They opened closets, checked drawers, looked under the couch, found nothing, because there was nothing to find. He also says you promised to support him financially and went back on it, the older officer added. We dated 4 months, I said. He quit his job without telling me and expected me to pay his bills. I said no. The older officer nodded. That's not illegal. I pulled up my texts, the timestamps, the Venmo request, the messages where he showed up with a suitcase. I handed over my phone without shaking. They reviewed everything. This report is unfounded, the officer said finally. But keep these messages. If he escalates, you may need a restraining order. If he escalates. He already had. 2 days later, my doorman called while I was at work. Your ex-boyfriend is in the lobby, he said. He's demanding to come up. Says he lives here. He does not, I said. Please don't let him up. He's getting aggressive, the doorman added. Should I call the police? Yes. By the time I got home, he was gone, escorted off the property. The next morning, I filed a formal trespass notice with building management. His name went on a list that meant security would call the police the second he showed up again. I thought that would slow him down. Instead, he changed targets. My boss called me into her office later that week. No warning, no context. I got an interesting email, she said. My chest tightened. Your ex-boyfriend filed a complaint. Claims you're creating a hostile environment for men. Says you're abusive and manipulative. I sat very still. He doesn't work here, I said. I know, she replied. Want to explain what's going on? I told her everything. From the job quitting to the Venmo request to the police report. I showed her the screenshots, the timestamps, the paper trail I'd started building instinctively. She listened, then she leaned back. So he's angry you wouldn't fund his unemployment after 4 months of dating. Yes. She shook her head once. This isn't a company matter, but keep documenting. He sounds unstable. That night, I got an email from his mother. Pages long, about how I'd ruined her son's life, how I'd manipulated him into quitting his job, how I was supposed to be the one, how they were exploring legal options for emotional damages. I forwarded it to my brother, who worked as a paralegal. He didn't even hesitate. Stop responding to anything, he said. I'll have a cease and desist drafted. $300 later, a certified letter went out demanding no further contact, no false reports, no harassment, personal or professional. The messages stopped. For 4 days. Then a Venmo notification popped up. $8,400. The note read, back pay for emotional labor, housing support, and meals you promised. My hands didn't shake this time. I screenshot it, sent it to my brother, declined it. An hour later, he posted on Instagram. No names, no tags, but everyone knew. When you give someone everything and they throw you away like trash, I'll survive this betrayal. The comments split down the middle. Some calling him brave, others calling him irresponsible. He deleted it within an hour. I didn't. I created a folder on my computer, labeled it evidence, because by then I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was preparing. The scariest part wasn't the messages. It wasn't the police at my door. It wasn't even watching his story unravel in real time, dragging my name through it. The scariest part was how quiet my life became around the chaos. I stopped sleeping through the night. I'd wake up to the smallest sounds, the elevator ding down the hall, footsteps outside my door, my phone vibrating on the nightstand. Every unknown number made my pulse spike. Every knock felt like it could be him again. I started altering my routine without realizing it at first. Different coffee shop, different route to work, gym at odd hours, head down in public spaces. Not because I'd done anything wrong, because he refused to accept that it was over. One morning, a message slipped through from a number I hadn't blocked yet. You don't get to erase me. You don't get to walk away like I meant nothing. I stared at the words longer than I should have. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight, like my lungs weren't fully inflating. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. That realization sat heavy in my stomach. The breaking point came at the coffee shop. It was my old spot, the one I'd been going to every morning for years. I hadn't seen him in weeks. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I couldn't let him dictate every inch of my life. I was in line when the door swung open behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know it was him. My body recognized him before my eyes did. "There she is," he said loudly. "The woman who ruined my life." Every head turned. I faced him slowly, my heart beat loud but even. "I'm not talking to you," I said. "You can't even face what you did," he shot back. "You promised you'd support me." "I never promised anything," I replied. "I'm not discussing this." The barista stepped in. "Sir, you need to leave or I'm calling the police." "He emotionally abused me," he said, pointing at me. "She owes me money." The room went silent. I felt heat crawl up my neck, but I kept my voice calm. "Please call the police," I said to the barista. "I've already filed reports." That's when he lost it. He started shouting about betrayal, about lies, about how everyone should know what kind of person I was. Then he stormed out. My hands shook once he was gone. Just once. I wrapped them around my coffee cup until the heat grounded me again. The barista slid my drink across the counter with a sympathetic look. "Your ex?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Yikes," he replied. "He seems intense." I filed another police report that afternoon. The officer who took it didn't sugarcoat anything. "You need to get a restraining order," he said. "This is escalating." I nodded. "I'm working on it." "Don't work on it," he said. "Do it. He's getting worse, not better." That night, I sat alone on my couch, the apartment too quiet again, the weight of everything pressing down at once. I opened my laptop and stared at the folder labeled Evidence. Texts, emails, police reports, screenshots, witness names, dates, times. My life reduced to documentation. I wasn't crying. I wasn't panicking. I was exhausted. And for the first time since this started, the thought crossed my mind, what if this never stops? That was the moment the fear finally reached my bones. And the moment I realized I couldn't just endure this anymore. I had to end it. The morning I filed for the restraining order, I didn't feel brave. I felt empty. The kind of emptiness that comes after your nervous system has been running on high alert for too long, when fear dulls into something quieter and heavier. I moved through the courthouse on autopilot, my footsteps echoing on tile floors that smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper. My brother met me there, calm and precise, carrying a binder that was almost comically thick. "This is good," he said, flipping through tabs. "You did everything right." It didn't feel like right. It felt like survival. Weeks of screenshots, Venmo requests, police reports, the cease and desist letter, witness statements, from the doorman, from the barista. Every piece told the same story from a different angle. I set a boundary. He refused to accept it. When the court date came, I barely slept the night before, not from fear of him, but from the weight of knowing I'd have to sit in the same room and listen to him rewrite reality out loud. He showed up with his mother. Of course he did. They sat across the room from me, whispering. He looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, still wounded looking, but not fragile, resentful. His mother kept shooting me looks sharp with accusation, like I'd personally engineered his collapse. When the judge asked if he contested the restraining order, he stood up immediately. "Yes," he said. "She's lying about everything." The judge nodded. "What evidence do you have?" He produced his own binder and slid it forward proudly. Printed screenshots, early texts, cute messages, inside jokes. "I care about you. I like being with you." "This," he said, tapping the pages, "is a promise." I felt something strange then, not anger. Clarity. The judge flipped through his binder slowly. "Ma'am," the judge said, looking at me, "is this from the early stage of the relationship?" "Yes," I said, before he quit his job, before any financial expectations were ever discussed. The judge turned back to him. "Sir, expressing affection while dating is not a legally binding financial agreement." His face tightened. "But she knew I was struggling," he insisted. "She made me feel worthless by refusing to help." Silence filled the room. The judge turned to my evidence. Texts with timestamps showing he quit before telling me. The Venmo requests. The false police report. The workplace harassment. The trespass notice. The judge leaned back. "Sir," she said calmly, "you quit your employment and expected your girlfriend of 4 months to financially support you. When she declined, you engaged in a pattern of harassment, filing false reports, contacting her employer, trespassing on her residence, and confronting her in public." He opened his mouth. She raised a hand. "This is textbook harassment." His mother stood up abruptly. "My son is struggling financially." "Your son," the judge said sharply, "is an adult who made poor decisions and is now experiencing natural consequences." She turned back to him. "The restraining order is granted. 1 year. No contact of any kind. 100 yards at all times. He started crying then, loud, uncontrolled. His mother hugged him and glared at me like I'd stolen something precious from her. "This is so unfair," she said. The judge didn't look impressed. "Ma'am, I strongly suggest you sit down." They were escorted out shortly after. Outside the courthouse, my brother bought me lunch. We sat quietly, the noise of traffic humming around us. "That was easier than expected," he said. I nodded. But what stayed with me wasn't relief. It was the realization that he genuinely believed he was the victim, that in his mind my boundary wasn't protection, it was betrayal. And that understanding did something powerful. It took the guilt away, because the truth was clear now. Public, documented, ruled on. I hadn't taken anything from him. I'd simply refused to give up myself. The silence after the restraining order felt unreal, not peaceful, empty, like the moment after a fire alarm stops blaring and you're left standing there, ears ringing, waiting to see what's burned. For the first few days, I kept expecting something to happen. Another message, another call, another knock. Nothing came. 2 weeks passed before I realized I was breathing differently, deeper, slower. I stopped checking my phone every time it lit up. I slept through the night for the first time in months and woke up disoriented by the absence of adrenaline. Then the aftershocks started. A message request popped up on Instagram from a woman I didn't recognize. "Hey, weird question, but did you date his name?" My stomach tightened, but not with fear this time, with recognition. "Yes," I replied. "Why?" She responded almost immediately. "I've been on 3 dates with him in the last 2 weeks. Tonight he told me he's thinking about quitting his job to find his passion and asked if I'd be okay helping him with bills while he figures things out. We met 10 days ago." I stared at the screen. Then I opened my folder. I sent her a screenshot of the restraining order. "Run," I typed. "He tried this with me." There was a long pause. Then, "Holy shit, thank you, blocking him now." Later, she messaged again. "He just sent me like 40 texts from different numbers, calling us both names. This is insane." I didn't reply after that, because I didn't need to. A week later, my doorman told me he'd tried coming back to the building again. The moment he recognized him, he called the police. He left before they arrived. I didn't feel triumph hearing that. I felt confirmation. Around that same time, I ran into someone at a bar who used to work with him. She recognized me from social media, hesitated before speaking, like she wasn't sure whether to say anything. "Oh," she said finally, "you're the woman he dated for a bit." "For 4 months," I replied. She winced. "Yeah, I'm sorry, he did this before." My chest tightened. "At his last company," she continued, "he dated his manager for a couple months. Then he quit and expected her to support him. When she didn't, he filed an HR complaint saying she harassed him. They transferred her to another office just to avoid the drama." I shook my head slowly. "You're joking." "I wish," she said. "He targets women with stable jobs, moves fast, creates emotional dependency, then plays the victim when they won't bankroll his life." It was the first time I understood it wasn't personal. I wasn't special. I was just next. That realization hurt and healed at the same time. Life settled into something quieter after that. I switched coffee shops permanently, told my gym staff what was going on, let my neighbors know not to buzz anyone up asking for me, built routines that belonged to me again. About a month later, I started seeing someone new. Slowly. No rushing, no assumptions, no blurred boundaries. 6 dates in, we split everything evenly. Sometimes I paid, sometimes he did. When the topic of my ex came up, I kept it vague. He shook his head. "I could never expect someone to support me," he said. "That's wild." I smiled then, not because I was impressed, because that sentence used to be rare. Now it felt like the bare minimum. The restraining order still had 9 months left on it. My brother told me if he violated it, jail time was a real possibility. I hoped it wouldn't come to that. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what might happen. Because whatever came next, I was ready. It's strange how quickly chaos fades once it loses access to you. Not disappears, just dulls, like a scar that stops aching when the weather changes. Life didn't suddenly become perfect after that. Nothing cinematic happened. No grand victory montage, no sense of triumph. What happened instead was quieter. I stopped apologizing for having boundaries. Stopped explaining myself to people who wanted access, not understanding. Stopped confusing empathy with obligation. The restraining order still had months left on it, but I didn't count the days anymore. I didn't need to. The fear that once lived under my skin had loosened its grip. I walked into coffee shops without scanning the room. I slept without bracing for my phone to light up. And in the space where anxiety used to sit, something steadier took root. Clarity. I learned that 4 months is not a lifetime, no matter how intense someone tries to make it feel. That shared dinners and sleepovers don't equal shared responsibility. That affection doesn't convert into debt just because someone decides it should. I learned that when someone tells you we're basically married without your consent, they're not expressing commitment. They're announcing entitlement. I learned that financial independence isn't cold. It's not selfish. It's not unloving. It's protective. Most of all, I learned that you don't have to wait for things to get catastrophic before you're allowed to say no. You don't need permission to opt out of someone else's poor decisions. You don't owe anyone your stability just because they admire it. To my ex, if you ever hear this, I don't hate you. I truly hope you figure your life out. But other people are not responsible for funding your self-discovery. Love is not a financial plan. Dating is not a contract. And boundaries are not abuse. You were almost 30 when this happened. That means it was time to grow up. As for me, I'm moving forward, slower, wiser, clear-eyed. And if there's one lesson I'd pass on to anyone listening, it's this. You are not heartless for having limits. You are not cruel for refusing to be someone's solution. And you are never wrong for protecting the life you work to build. Chapter closed. Moving on for good.